extra time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've actually started off with a defender too, because I was looking at Malang Sarr, who is available on a free this summer.
Nice.
I think it was confirmed a couple of days ago by Nice that he will leave on a free transfer this summer, but his destination is not yet confirmed. And it's amazing to me that he hasn't signed a free contract with somebody, given his profile. I mean, he's been quite a big name in the transfer market for a few years now. Broke through in 2016-17, so he's only 21, but he's already got over 100 Ligue 1 appearances. And he's just a really good active defender. He's 6 foot tall, so he's not huge, but he's extremely fast. And he's left-footed, which is always valuable
A rarity,
in the market.
yeah.
Really good passer, over 70 passes a game, 4 long balls, 90% accuracy. I think this season he's at 3.5 tackles and interceptions per game, and that's actually down from the previous season. He's making a lot of defensive actions for a centre-back, and he's always got very high interception numbers specifically. And that kind of makes me think that he has good game reading. You know, he knows when to step out and when not to. And despite the fact that he is quite an aggressive front foot defender, he only commits a foul every 2 games currently. So to me, he's got the kind of, I guess, the aggression that you often see in young defenders, but without the propensity to commit errors.
Yeah, the carelessness.
Yeah, and
I did not say that right.
but I just think he'd be an excellent signing. And if you're a club like Arsenal, I actually think that this is probably a good summer to put your hand in your pocket. I mean, he's obviously free, but you'd have to give him decent wages. But given that a lot of clubs are not really going to be investing, and the smaller clubs are extremely reliant for their continued financial health on money trickling down from the bigger sides, I think that it's probably a good window to go to some of these teams in Ligue 1 and in the Championship and say, you know, this star player who you would previously ask 30 mil for, we don't have 30 mil, but we'll give you 20, and maybe you can pick those guys up. And similarly, you know, when you are in contract negotiations with someone like Sarr, maybe you can say to him, look, we'll give you this initial salary of X amount, and then once we get back to a position where we're earning the normal amount that we get from match day revenue, you know, from TV money, we will boost your wages up. I think you could kind of bake that into somebody's contract early on and maybe nab yourself a good deal. But I think Malang Sarr is pretty much good enough to go to almost any club. Certainly on a free transfer. It's almost no risk whatsoever. He's a France youth international, 21 years old. What more could you want? And with Arsenal bringing in Saliba this summer, I think they'll probably try and shift Mustafi or Luiz or Socrates, preferably 2 of those. He seems like he'd be a very good signing.
Of those 3 that you, just quickly before we move on, of those 3, which would you most, obviously you'd probably like to see Mustafi leave, but who out of David Luiz and Socrates would you most like to keep?
Probably David Luiz. I mean, they're both fairly error prone, but David Luiz adds a little bit more with his passing.
He's looked much improved under Arteta, I thought, David Luiz, until the break.
Yeah, I think so as well. And more importantly, he just does give us a different option passing out of the back. Like, I think that's so helpful. And also, if you were to ever try and switch to a 3 at the back, you know, for particular games, I think he'd be extremely useful. With Socrates, I just think Socrates is a sort of big, aggressive, physical defender. Those attributes are only going to diminish as he gets older. Whereas David Luiz, those attributes have already diminished, but he's still got the passing at least. So probably Socrates. But to be honest, if somebody comes in with a decent offer for either of them, I think you have to sell.
Yeah. But on Malang Sarr, I think that's a really good option. And there's a couple of quite interesting centre-back prospects that clubs could look at this year. I mean, you put down on your sort of reading that Tanganga's only got, I think it's 1 year left on his contract, doesn't he? And right. Since coming into the Spurs team for that game against Liverpool, I think he's been absolutely awesome. I mean, it's limited minutes. I think he's only made 6 Premier League appearances, so only just over 500 minutes. But 4.8 tackles and interceptions, looks really good in the air. Comfortable playing at right back, comfortable playing at right centre back, comfortable playing in a 2 or a 3-man defence as well. Although I think it's quite unlikely Spurs would be willing to sell him, but he's not on a big wage. So could potentially look at that. And then my other centre back suggestion was 23-year-old Villarreal centre back Pau Torres, who only makes 1.8 tackles and interceptions per 90, which doesn't sound great, but like sort of Virgil van Dijk, he's not sort of he's more of a reader of a game rather than like an aggressive centre back. So someone like Vincent Kompany was always very aggressive. Pau Torres is a back foot defender. Completes 92% of his tackles when he goes in for the ball. For a bit of context, Van Dijk is on 80% this season. So his decision making is really solid. His execution on when to come in and make an impact is really good as well. 45% aerial duel win rate doesn't sound great, but I don't really know why that is, because his last 2 seasons has been well over 60%. So maybe he's just having a bit of a down year in the air. I'm not quite sure. But he's a really good passer as well. Close to an 85% pass accuracy, 59 passes per game. Completes more long balls per 90 than Jasper Cillessen in Valencia's goal. That's why I looked at him. And Barcelona are supposedly interested in him, which is the only slight concern. But his market value is around £14 million. So he could be another player that you'd potentially want to look at centre-back.
Yeah, plus we've talked before about Mohamed Salisu at Valladolid, who has supposedly a €12 million buyout clause. I remember as well, you at one point, I think, it might have been on the podcast, brought up Reims centre-back Axel Disasi, who is also, I believe, available for a song this summer. He might have a contract that's coming to an end next year.
Oh, nice. I don't actually remember bringing him up. Maybe it was someone else.
Yeah, well, he's a 22-year-old centre-back who's performed very well this season, alongside Hassan Kamara at Reims. But who else have you got? Who else are you looking at?
So, I was really got quite excited this morning when I found